All right, welcome everybody. This is the second episode of the PhysEd Talking Heads. Thank you guys for joining us. Let's go around and introduce ourselves first off, and then we'll get to our topic. So, Zach, you want to start us off?
Sure. I'm Zach Smith. Now I'm a K1 PE teacher, soon to be a K1 to 3 PE teacher
Yeah, big
in
changes going on in Saudi Arabia.
the Kaust School, Saudi Arabia.
So Zach teaches
Cool.
I teach with Zach. Zach is the K1 teacher. I'm the K3 teacher at the Cow School in Saudi Arabia. And like Zach said, next year it's gonna be a huge change for us. We're gonna be teaching all grade levels, K1, K2, K3. We're gonna be in our own buildings because right now we're kind of separated into two buildings. So big changes coming around in Cal School in Saudi Arabia, but I think we're both excited about the changes, right, Zach?
Yeah,
We're gonna be
I'm
working
excited
closely
about it.
together.
Yeah, I'm totally excited about that. It's not really normal to teach one grade level, but I've been doing it for a few years, so I have to get back into the multifaceted view of everything, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, Zach is a killer K1 teacher, and so I'm kind of afraid of the K1 students because they're 3 years old, and I don't know what to
They
do
do,
with the girls.
I would say they don't bite, Jorge, but that's
You've
actually
been
not
bitten.
necessarily true.
All right, Joe, you're out and about. Tell us about yourself. Where are you coming from?
Okay, I am in Wausau, Wisconsin, where it's a beautiful day, but it's still kind of cold. As you can see, there's still plenty of snow behind me. I do serve senior high school, which is a 10 through 12 high school, and I have been there for 16 years now.
Wow. All right, and Brandon?
Nice. My name is Brandon Herwick. I teach K through 5 right south of Albany, New York. I taught in Brooklyn for 4 years, and now I'm upstate New York. And freshly off KFIRD conference, which if you ever get a chance to go, California crew, they are enthusiastic, passionate, love to dance, and have some really cool programs going on in California. So, yes.
Yeah, that KFIRD conference is awesome. So Joe and I both were at the KFIRD conference. We were
Same year, weren't we?
We're in that underground luchador group, aren't we, Joe?
We do. Mask is always handy.
We can't talk about it. We can't talk about it.
Circulated around.
Rule number 1: we can't talk about it. Sorry. All right, so let's get to the topic.
Someday we hope to find out the details.
Someday when we're all at KFIRD, we'll go to that taqueria and we'll all get luchador masks and we'll all be part of the crew. How about that?
Yeah.
You had me at taqueria, bro.
That sounds amazing.
It's a great place. It's a great place.
Oh, it's fantastic. Okay, so let's get to the topic. So I thought it'd be really cool to talk a little bit about the Shape America appropriate, inappropriate practice guidelines. And so it's a document that that I've seen sort of shared a lot, talked about a lot, and a lot of these things come up all the time. Especially like in forums and social media groups, people talk about a lot of these appropriate or inappropriate practices. And this document, I think it's a pretty cool document. It's a pretty lengthy document. I think it's like 26, 27 pages or something like that. And there's all kinds of different appropriate and inappropriate practices. And so what it is sort of like, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the document. But it's sort of it's elementary, middle school, and secondary or high school, and it has the appropriate practice, and right next to it has the inappropriate practice. And there are, I think there's like 5 domains that they go through, and there's categories and everything else. So it's a pretty lengthy document. But I do want to say, like right off the bat, that it's not sort of like an end-all be-all document. It's not supposed to be like this comprehensive document. I view it as sort of good rules of thumb, right? But then I think it's also important to say that it doesn't take into account the context of your teaching environment. So I think that's really, really important to say, that these aren't necessarily things that you have to do. They should be treated as, the document should be treated as a tool, and what's in it should be treated as guidelines that can give you some sort of guidance if you're if you have a question on an appropriate or inappropriate practice. So with that said, I thought it'd be interesting if we all chose one of the practice guidelines and then talked about it. So I don't know. Does anybody want to volunteer to go first, or should I go first? Well, how do you want to do this? Any volunteers? Any volunteers? No? No?
Lead us
Going
off,
once, going twice?
Jorge.
Yeah, go for it,
Lead us
Jorge.
off.
All right, so I'll
Go,
go first.
Jorge.
So the appropriate practice that I picked, it was a curriculum practice, and on the chart it's 3.7. So it's interdisciplinary instruction. So mine says teachers frequently link PE experiences with concepts being taught in other subject areas. So that would be the appropriate practice. And then the inappropriate practice would be PE classes are used to teach, let me see if I can read my handwriting here, are used to teach cognitive concepts emphasizing other areas of the curriculum at the expense of teaching PE or PE skills or concepts. So I wanted to pick that one because I think something that we do in KAUST at TKS at the kindergarten level, and even at at the higher levels as well, is that we do have a really strong sense of interdisciplinary teaching. And so I think because we're an IB school, it's kind of easy to find the way to kind of teach those transdisciplinary themes throughout, all of the specialist classes. So in PE, when they come to PE, what we do is we try to have a strong integration or strong. We try to have an integration with the classroom teachers, and so they'll have their unit of inquiry, and they'll have their planners laid out. And if we have a strong integration with those planners, we have our own planners. If we have a strong integration with those planners, we might take the central idea and have the same central idea in both of our planners. We might have a specific concept that we're looking at. And I think this year what we did really well in the K3 level is we had two planners that had a very high level of integration. So we called it a level 3 level of integration, where we're using the same central idea, we're using the same concepts, and for two of my planners, I even used the same lines of inquiry that they had on their planners as well. And so what the lines of inquiry are, they usually have three main ideas or main topics, and so I use the same ones in my classroom. And so the first one that we did was a creative unit, and the central idea around it was around creativity and how we express ourselves. And so for PE, it was a really easy link to think about how we express ourselves and have the kids be creative physically. And so I think if we're looking at that particular appropriate practice, we can find these links in all of our specialty classes where we can give our kids different experiences, not only in their classroom, but in their specialty classes, but that all link up to the same sort of concept. We could teach through the same central idea, and then the kids get the experience and can make those connections across disciplines. And so I think this idea kind of eliminates the idea of teaching in silos, and math starts and stops here, and English starts and stops here, and history starts and stops here, and it's all connected, right? So education, learning, everything is all connected. And so the experiences that they see in their classroom, they're different experiences in the gym, but they can be linked. And so I think that also promotes an idea of deeper learning. So where the students can make links to these experiences through multiple disciplines, and then hopefully take that into like the real world and help them problem solve in the real world. So that's the idea, and that's why I wanted to pick that one. So at this point, I think we can open it up and see what everybody else thinks about that particular appropriate practice.
I've always liked the idea of the IB kind of integration, where you don't have these silos that you know, whether well, not necessarily intentionally, but sometimes do happen, where people see, okay, there's this subject area, and they aren't necessarily making connections between one area and another. And I think, you know, at all levels, the more we can do that, the richer experience is going to be for the students, and the more deeper their learning is going to be across the board, where if they're constantly getting that practice that, oh, I see how this connects here, or that could help me there, and so on. That, I mean, that's such a wonderful life skill to develop. And in terms of developing the ability to see different perspectives and to, you know, take different environment scenarios into account, it's perfect. And I think the earlier it starts, the better. So I think, you know, from what I've not ever taught within the IB program, but from what I've seen from the PYP, NYP, and so on, I love the whole idea of that central unit of inquiry concept.
Yeah, and another idea that came to mind, the second unit that I did this year was a teamwork unit, and that one worked really well also because we talked a lot about. So for me, it was an adventure challenge unit, but the lens in which I was teaching this adventure challenge was through teamwork. And then in the classroom, they got the same sorts of concepts. So it was another level 3 integration where we were using the same central idea, the same lens of focus, the same lines of inquiry, and teaching similar concepts. And what was great about it was, and I know Zach's doing something similar right now with his K1 students and his teachers, but what was great about it is that we kind of shared information that was going on in the classrooms as well as in PE. So what I started off the unit doing was we did sort of like a pre-assessment for PE where they were supposed to do this challenge of getting. We were doing this cup stack challenge where they had to build a pyramid as a class, but small groups were getting these cups from one end of the gym to the other end of the gym in different creative ways, right? And then at the end, they all built this huge pyramid, and and I filmed them, and I took pictures of the pyramid and everything else. And then so I used that as sort of a pre-assessment, knowing that at the end of the unit they were going to do the same thing and see what the difference was. And so the classroom teachers took the video and the pictures that I took in PE and used that as a provocation for their class for teamwork. And so they talked about it, and they talked about how they could be a good team, how they could be an effective team. And then those ideas that they sort of listed were sent to me, and then I was able to use that in my next lesson and say, you guys talked about this in Mr. Josh's class, and so now these are the things that you guys talked about, so let's try it in PE, right? And so we just kept building on that and building on that throughout the unit. And it was really cool to see how the kids would sort of, you know, you would see it in their eyes, or you would see that sort of like aha moment to say like, oh yeah, we talked about that. I remember that. We talked about that in class, and then do it in PE, right? So it was the same concept, the same mindset, but in a different environment, in a different sort of challenge. And so you could see a lot of the students kind of making those links and making those connections. And I thought that was really cool. And then at the end of all that, so we did the post assessment, and we did the same challenge, and I videoed them, and they were, you know, we saw the difference of how they did in the beginning of the year, or the beginning of the unit and the end of the unit. And then after that, we had a field day where again we reinforced some of those same concept that we used throughout the teamwork unit. And I thought that was a really cool, like, culminating event at the end. So again, we had that integration, we had that connection with the classroom, and then at the end it was like this big celebration with the field day. And I thought that was really cool, really cool timing, as well as, you know, like I said, partnership with the classroom teachers. So Zach, can you talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, totally. I'm definitely fully on board with that. I'm fully indoctrinated into the PYP cult, and I'm really on board about it. One thing I did want to say, or I'm really on board with it. If you look at the inappropriate practice, though, you know, I think one thing I wanted to point out is that, you know, they're actually talking about taking PE time and teaching other skills to the detriment of physical education, basically,
Yeah.
which, I mean, obviously we're all against that. And I think it's just a matter of as you said, really embedding it skillfully, like being a skillful lesson planner, finding connections, and concepts are a great way to go. This year, I've been like thinking more about integration, because as we also integrate into 2 units per year that are what we call a full integration. But we've been rethinking it this year. And then, sometimes you'd have a standalone unit, but we've been rethinking, at least I have with Andy, our pedco, rethinking standalones in the context of the levels of integration. So instead of having a standalone unit, it's a level one integration where you might just share a concept or an approach to learning, which is another category of learning in the PYP. But even when you have a full integration, I felt like it could become a bit fuzzy, and especially for the students, because you just say, okay, we're integrating, so we have the same central idea, but the integration isn't clear. So this year I wanted to make it clear, and we focused on our central idea, which is artists create to express themselves, and the concept is expression. So in the classroom, they're doing a lot of visual arts, sculpting, building, and these are K1 students, mind you. So, and then in PE, we're learning through stories and creative movement, and retelling stories through movement. And then also, so what we did is I also created like a document, like a large document that had 4 spaces with each of the teachers' pictures: the classroom teacher, the physical education teacher, the performing arts teacher, and the Arabic teacher. So all of the teachers were encouraged to, the document came with them to every class that they went to. And the teacher was encouraged to talk about the other areas that they saw where there's pictures, because we're dealing with K1 students, so it's all in pictorial language, and talk about how they're expressing themselves in that context, and then how we're expressing ourselves in that context there. So hopefully by the end, we'll have a nice visual focused reminder of, the links and how we can express ourselves in different contexts in school. So that it's working out pretty well. I do need to work on getting more buy-in from everybody, and because it was the first time that we did it, and I just, maybe with the rollout, I need to become more transparent with all the teachers and just make sure we have buy-in. Next week, we're going to actually check in on it and like kind of moderate, bring our mind maps, we're calling them mind maps, and then, compare, contrast, get ideas, and talk about where we can take it next. So cool. That's how we've done integration. But I think conceptually versus, we argued about like concepts versus skills, which one is better to go across context, because another idea I had was like, for K1 students, we build up a bank of patterns. What patterns can you see in the classroom? What patterns can you make in PE class? What patterns can you make in performing arts? What patterns could there be in Arabic? But that was more skill-based, and we felt the conceptual was more in line with the central idea of the unit. So there's a lot of tinkering you can do with it.
Yeah, and I think like you said, if you take a conceptual approach, it's a little bit easier to sort of honor what's going on in physical education class and in some of the other subject areas. So you don't necessarily have to go into that sort of inappropriate practice of kind of forgetting your curriculum and
trying to squeeze it in.
Yeah, where it's not appropriate.
More authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
This is such a fascinating conversation too, because, and Zach, it was interesting when you were saying like you have to revisit like the buy-in and things like that, because in our school it happens a lot too. My coworker and I do what we feel are some pretty innovative programs, and we've been doing them. I've been at this school for 6 years now, but still we have students come in, and they're not the kindergartners that come in and they go, oh, like, we do that in PE? I thought this was PE. Like, I thought this was, like gym class, you know, and we're like, oh, the fact that they use gym class. And then also, do you guys not get it yet? Like we're incorporating life lessons and all these other aspects into physical education. So it's fascinating that I'm curious how it is in your school, because it seems like, you know, with your different like mind maps and things like that, like, are your students used to this yet? Because our students are still like at base level, they just want to get in and move. Like for
Mhm.
some kids, they want to play tag all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
For us, we're so passionate about it that, you know, we want to incorporate life lessons and we want to incorporate these interdisciplinary things. And maybe that's the next step where physical education is going, and maybe it's already there in some schools. But did you find the teachers, were they used to this yet? Were they kind of like, oh, you're doing this in PE?
Yeah, no, we're still, yeah. I think that, you know, my students, they, you know, that's what I love about my area, is that they're so open and naturally curious. And, you know, if you create a developmentally appropriate experience for them, they're ready to go. You know, we don't necessarily have that kind of pushback, but yeah, from other teachers, I have gotten a little pushback, you know, like, oh, this is extra work. Why are we doing this? You know, oh, I'm going to be compared to other teachers because theirs looks better than mine or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's like a little bit of a process so far. And I've just been trying to be very encouraging, and like I made everything for everybody. So all they have to do is like, you know, tend to their little context and make sure it comes to the specialist. But you know, and then I have to hear their thoughts and see where to go from there, you know. So it's been a process for sure, and it's an ongoing process. So
No, I
there
think,
is a little bit of pushback.
yeah, I think you're right. Because I know when I was in Houston, I got probably more pushback there than I do here. But yeah, I got some people asking, you know, why we're doing certain things in PE, and you know, my answer to the kids and the teachers was typically the same. I mean, we're trying to create students who are the best versions of themselves, and so if we're doing that, w- all these things have to play together. You know, again, we're not in silos. We can't just have math during math class. We can't, and then stop thinking about science or stop thinking about the scientific method in PE class, because that's what opens up your mind, right? And those are the
Right.
things that you need to go through the world. And so if we're only doing it for this particular period of time every day, then you don't take that outside of the school walls and say, I also have to implement this critical thinking in everything that I do. And we absolutely do. You know, that's what life is. And so critical thinking doesn't stop when you leave math class or science lab or whatever. In PE,
Right.
you also have to think critically. And then when you leave PE and you go to art, you also have to think critically and creatively and
Yes.
out of the box and have your mind open, because it never stops. Learning never stops, right? And it's a constant thing that we're constantly having to do and and sort of make meaning out of everything that goes on in life. And so that was, you know, those were the same conversations that I had with my students as I had with the teachers, to help them kind of understand that we've been doing school this one way all the time, but why not
Yep.
open it up? Let's think about it differently, and that works too, you know. And actually, that
Well,
works better.
yeah. This might be a good
Hmm.
segue for the practice that I found, because I wanted to take like a slightly different twist. Can I move to
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Okay, so the appropriate practice that I picked, and it's the same for elementary, middle school, and high school within this document, is 5.1. Well, it's 5.0 professionalism, and then 5.1 professional growth. And it's the teacher continually seeks new information to stay current. Example, reads journals, attends conferences, and then services. So that's like a really basic, maybe description of professional growth. But I also wanted to take it as like a mind exercise, where if we could take every physical education teacher, all teachers, and we could,
Oh, did we lose Brandon?
if you look at like their hobbies,
Hey, we lost the
oh,
last like 10 seconds of
how
your
does hobby influence? Oh, Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're
How about
there.
now?
You're back.
Now
You're
we
back.
can, yeah. His video's
Okay.
frozen though.
Yeah, he's
Basically,
Oh, there.
what I was saying is, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it
you're
working?
on. Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
don't know. Like I'm not in the. Anyway, I'm in one spot. Maybe it's because I'm moving so fast. If you took a teacher's hobbies, or took like their second job, and looked at that and saw how it maybe influenced their current position, could you then create like certain categories of teachers, right? Like, so I would imagine that for you two in your cost schools, like you have a lot of mapping and a lot of really incredible like outlaying. So I wonder, like, if Jorge and Zach, like, you would have become like engineers, or if you have like, you dabble in some kind of like architectural design, because like the way you visualize your lessons is in such like a blueprint kind of idea, you know. And for me, like, we've talked about this in previous episodes, but like I love to watch like Chef's Table and watch how a chef runs their kitchen and how they get creative with that. And, you know, I love theater, and that totally goes into it, you know. And with Joe, I don't know, Joe, you could have become like a professional athlete, or maybe like managed a team or something like that, because, you know, you have all these outside ideas. But the same goes for coaches. You know, how many physical education teachers are coaches?
Mhm.
And that's a big model they use to run their classes. You know, we're going to have a warm up, we're going to have activities, it's going to be very skill specific. A lot of these conceptual things about life and about, you know, critical thinking are not incorporated because they're within the context of maybe a sports team. So I wanted to kind of take that professional growth. Yes, it's important to read journals and attend conferences and in-services, but a lot of times you're going to see a lot of similar ideas uh, of games and activities and concepts. And I want to kind of bring it out. What are you doing outside of those things that are directly relating back to your, you know, career as a physical education teacher?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at that too, because um, I forget who I was talking to. Maybe it was Andy, and we were talking about where we get some of our inspiration from. And maybe I was asking him where he was getting where he got some of his inspiration from. And it's like, really, it's everywhere, right? So it's not just other physical education teachers. It's not just PE books, but or articles or documentaries or whatever. But it's, or maybe I was talking to Zach. Zach, I think we've had this conversation too, where there's,
Yeah.
because Zach is an amazing musician, and
Okay.
what he does, you know, musically, you can see that you can see that transfer into his passion as a K1 teacher, right? And so when I'm watching him on stage, because he performs here in the community, when I'm watching him on stage, it's like he's transformed into like Zach the the drummer, right? Or the rapper or whatever you know, like he's multifaceted, right? And then when I see him sort of on stage during his class, it's like, whoa, that's not the same guy I play frisbee golf with, you know. He's channeling this other talent that he
Yeah.
has, and it's transferring over from this passion that he has here, and it's transferring to his passion that he has here, and it's sort of all connected and woven together. Does that make sense?
Actually, I really have been thinking
Yeah.
about this during this unit, especially, or just this year, actually, because my professional inquiry for the year has been like focusing on storytelling as a provocation to deepen engagement and the meaningful PE model of facet of personal relevance for my young students. And actually, I was really thinking that I'm actually finally using my college degree, because I was like a liberal arts major. I wasn't in the PE mindset at all, even teaching mindset at all, really. And I studied mostly like poetry and you know, like the collective unconscious of Jung, and
Nice.
mythology and stuff like that. So this year has really been, and yeah, I am a musician also and a writer, and this year has really challenged me to like bring all those different facets together, and it's been really fulfilling. So yeah, I think it's, and yeah, you know, drawing, like I'm out there reading like The Hero with a Thousand Faces and comic books, and you know, listen, like sometimes there's different types of music or songs that inspire me to like, and even making songs and writing stories. So it's, yeah, I think it's great. It's really energized me as a teacher, and hopefully it's coming through with the students too. So I
Yeah,
think it's important for sure.
and then I think that's interesting, like going back to what Brandon was saying, and like how we can, and something that Andy always says, how we can bring our authentic self into the classroom and in for our students, like how we can take the passions that the things that we're passionate about that's outside of education and bring that into education. I think that that's the real trick, right? And really give
Yeah.
our authentic selves to our students.
Joe, you know, I said like, you know, you would be a professional athlete or like a sports manager, but you also have that huge post and you speak about like the chemicals in our brains, right? And how that works. Like, is that you? Like, is that your passion? Like, what are you bringing?
I think it is now, and you know, your segueing's doing really well today because when I was trying to pick, you're good at this. When I was trying to pick one of the things out of the appropriate practice document, first of all, I couldn't pick because there's so many. It's like
Yeah.
and then I picked sort of 3 or 4, and eventually I was just looking at them again, and the 3.6 valuing physical activity. That us as physical educators, our job is to help all students experience the satisfaction and joy that result from learning and participating in physical activity. I think to me now that is like it underlies everything. It's like that's our core goal, and how are we structuring or trying to make sure that we're doing that in any way, shape, or form. And kind of like, again, you know, you obviously get some of your plenty of your PDA conferences and here and there, but so often it's the doing your everyday things. Like I'm going for a run, I think of something and think, oh gosh, that connects to A or B or C, and I have to remember that, or I see something somewhere. But I really do believe the more that we can connect to how do we recognize and respond and reflect on those feelings and how they kind of help guide us, it's going to make a huge difference. And within that, the other important part is to, you know, I think so often, even within that, you know, while you want everyone to have a valuable experience, you know, lifelong through physical activity, you're going to have difficulties. Nothing is going to be plain sailing all the way along the line, you know, for anything that, you know, you've always got
Yeah.
curves coming along. And it's okay to have that, you know, level of stress, that where not everything is going right. It's how you then respond and reflect to it. So, you know, I think that those times when, you know, you're exhausted, but you think you should go and do something, and then like, is this going to help me? Am I going to regret it afterwards? And those, all that, I guess it's a combination of learning to make a decision, learning to think about what the outcomes are, and not expecting everything to be all yay, happy all the time, because that's just not realistic. That's kind of jumbled, but does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
No,
that's
I think that's a
perfect.
good. I think that's a good point too, because I think in fact you almost need that, right? You almost need those valleys. Like just recently, I was talking to my wife about. I told her, you know, I feel like I am in this sort of creative slump. Like I feel so lazy and I don't want to do anything. And so we talked about it, and we were talking and then I kind of came to the realization. I was like, I don't want to do anything because I'm not doing anything. You know,
Yes.
I just have to do
Yeah.
so. I
Yeah.
have to get back into that creative mode. It's not
Yeah.
just going to happen. I have to make it happen. And so I was really
Yeah.
excited to talk to you guys today, because I mean, this excites me, right? And connecting
Yeah.
with you guys and talking this out and talking PE and talking these like deep conversations, that excites me. And I wasn't doing that. And so like I said, I had that sort of epiphany. If I want something to happen, I have to do it. I can't just sit
Yeah.
back and let it happen. So I needed that sort of slump so that I could reflect, have a conversation, and then get out of that slump and hopefully, you know, hit it hard so that I can be more creative and be sort of myself again, right? Because I did feel
Yes.
like I was in a slump for the last couple of weeks. I talked to Zach about it too. I was just kind of like, I'm not motivated. I don't know what to do. And it's because I wasn't
Yeah.
doing anything.
I think,
Well,
I know for us,
go ahead.
no,
Go ahead, Joe.
this time
Yeah.
of year in particular is rough. I don't know about you, we're still in the deep of winter. There hasn't been any break whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's what, 2/3 through the school year. Not just teachers, but our students are getting tired. I think like I said, it's recognizing it and understanding that it is normal, and then realizing that yes, we have to effectively drag ourselves up through it sometimes in order to come out the other side. It's
Yes.
Myself and my colleague, we definitely threw ourselves some pity parties last week. We're like, we're so tired. but we've been dragging ourselves out of it as well.
Well, you can also just think about it because, creativity definitely goes in cycles. You can't just create all the time without like filling up the bucket with life experiences also too. So you can think about it instead of a slump. Maybe you're in your life living portion, your learning lessons portion, ebbs and flows. That's how I try to think about it.
Well, and the connection between all these is that like you reached out to other people, like Jorge, you talked to Zach and your wife, like Joe, you talked to your coworkers. Like I do like a CrossFit kids and teens class, and I have like a really eclectic group of young minds, like super wacky, but I love them all. And at the end of class, like something just like, I don't know why I asked, but I go, we're sitting in a circle and I go, what's something you need encouragement in your life right now? And what do you need encouragement? And like, usually when I ask them questions, there's like some silence, but this is like, what do you need encouragement in? All of a sudden it like the floodgates opened of like, oh, I'm having a tough time with this class. Oh, who do you have for this teacher? Oh, like I'm really tired lately. Oh, this homework. Oh, this and this and this and this and this. And it like, it erupted, the conversation in such a positive way. And like you're saying, like this time of the year, especially for students and for teachers, like we need to reach out to each other and say, hey, like, what can I give you some encouragement in? And for the students too, like, what can I give you like a high five in? Like, what do you need me to check in for? Like that expressing it and then talking about it, like it gets everything going, it just starts you back up.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah, and I think that touches on that idea of community too, and how we are social animals, right? And we need each other. And when I'm struggling, I'm not the only one struggling. And sometimes to get out of the slump or to get out of your struggles, sometimes helping somebody else is just as beneficial for you as it is for that other person. So that's something that I try to keep in mind as well. Like if I'm struggling, I need to find a way to help somebody get out of their struggles, and a lot of times that helps me get out of mine.
Absolutely. Definitely.
All right, so that's not a good transition, but Zach,
well, I was going to say, Zach, what's yours?
So I have chosen like a goal of mine, actually, something that I think I need to, or I have room for improvement here. I think it might be the last two.
Do they have to do with your Frisbee golf game?
No, that's on point, bro.
Okay.
That is on point.
Well, if you drive using a backhand throw, that might help you, Zach. I'm just saying.
I know.
I've never seen kind-hearted Jorge like spit game like that.
That's right, Jorge.
And I love it's the consummate teacher in him that even when he's like throwing game at you, he's still like teaching you. Like, Zach, your game could improve, but if you use this backhand or if you lead with the pointer finger, that'll really help you. I'm just saying.
He's a true teacher at heart.
Yeah.
But anyways, I don't need teaching in Frisbee golf or Jorge. I'm doing just fine, bro. Anyways, my appropriate practice is on advocacy here, 5.3. I chose 2, little cheating. The teacher informs parents, guardians, administrators, and the public regularly about the physical education program's goals and activities. And the inverse of that would be the teacher does little to communicate with parents, guardians, administrators, or policymakers concerning physical education's objectives and goals or its importance to developing the whole child. And then the second one is the teacher helps create a school culture of physical activity. So, and then the inverse. The teacher doesn't promote the physical education program. Therefore, it's not a visible part of the community. And I like that word, visible there. I think we definitely do, like our school is big on the body-brain connection. We've really, we've consulted with Jill Connell. She's visited us twice, the author of A Moving Child is a Learning Child. And it really has been a big priority in our school, but I think where we could do a better job, even better job, is making that learning visible in our community, and therefore educating our parents a little bit more about it, and making connections in the community. So basically being an advocate outside of school, really. And actually I use, Joe, your poster, the DOSE poster that's outside my gym. And I really, because I think I saw you in, was it? Oh, in Dubai. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And that's where I first learned about those connections. I mean, you know, you always hear about endorphins and stuff, but there's so many other chemicals that are extracted, released during physical activity, and even just the sense of belonging, and, you know, like the social aspects of it also. So I think we do a fairly good job of it, but as Jorge and I, we even get on a, you know, we've discussed, you know, making signs for our playgrounds in our community, and really making the connections between play and growing up, basically, and even academic readiness visible to parents more. And we do it, and we work on spaces in our school where there's, you know, opportunities to move indoors, because we have sometimes very hot days where it's not really too enjoyable to be moving around vigorously outside. So we have some indoor spaces. But I think that our students in general, our student population, the parent education is a big piece, because that's, you know, a big part of their lives is outside of school, right? So we need to continue to push to give ideas to parents for how to move their children, or get their children to move, and the benefits of it, and, you know, really the importance of it. So, and oh yeah, we had parent conferences last week, and it really drove home that point, because the parents do want ideas. You know, they want to get their kids moving. They know that that's what they should do, but sometimes they don't know exactly what. And I got a chance to plug some of the books that I use, and you know, encourage them to check them out from our school library. And then we also use Seesaw as a tool, so the parents can watch Seesaw and get some ideas that way. But I'm always trying to push it further, and you know, really make it visible. So maybe even we could have some sort of corner in our schools where we have pictures or videos from PE class, or guidelines for parents, ideas for parents. I don't know, sort of the Reggio style, where there's exhibitions in the community of the learning. Those are some big ideas that I have for the future. And I think that the PE teacher as advocate is pretty important.
I think we had a...
Go ahead, Joe.
Sorry,
I have a lot of ideas after Joe. No, go, Joe.
We had, because we're so kind of versed in this all the time, and then we talk with each other, we get it, we understand the benefits and this and where you could do things. I think it's sometimes easy to forget how little exposure or how little opportunity some people have had to make those connections. We had a PD day yesterday, and one of the focuses was on self-care, and you forget how many people have not been exposed to, for me, for example, using snowshoes, and how to move, and understanding the importance of daylight, and or how to go into a fitness facility and not knowing how a treadmill works. And it's like, oh, it's a good step back. And what you're saying is exactly that's why it's so important that we are showing and explaining the why behind what we're doing, and giving our parents the tools to use those things, you know, in your case with younger children, but also for themselves as well. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
The two things I was thinking about. Number one, I love that you said the Reggio style of exhibitions in the community.
Yeah.
That's killer. Like I like that just like blew my mind a little bit, because you know, how often do you see on the big billboards like, hey, I don't know in where you are, but like, you know, the football team is champion.
Uh-oh.
He's frozen again. You're frozen again, Brandon.
Am I frozen, or can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All right, you're
Yeah,
back.
you might
You're
have
back.
to
That keeps
repeat that.
happening. All right.
Okay, you
Am I
cut
back?
out when you said the football team.
Yeah,
Well,
football
yeah,
team.
like the football team will be on the grand marquee, and that's something the community like kind of goes around. Like
Yeah.
that's a moral boost for the community. But like you were saying, what if there's like celebratory exhibitions of the positive things happening in physical education? And then even like when you go on a trail, there's facts like this is a blue spruce, you know, this is how the Douglas fir totally changed the landscape of the Pacific Northwest. Like, what if you did like different like movement boosts around the community too? Like there's a little placard as you walk into the grocery store, and it's like, hey, see if you can, you know, speed walk through this aisle. And then, or I don't know, it's just like, I love that idea of having a presence within the community of tips, of tricks, of different celebratory things. And like that totally boosts the community, gets around that. They can become proud of that.
Yeah,
That's
I think
awesome.
it's a cool idea. It's a lofty goal. We've been talking about it. I think we kind of had it on hold because I think they're changing the playgrounds a little bit, but now it's seen, I don't know, that hasn't happened anymore. But we need to get on that, Jorge.
Yeah, I think that would be cool.
Get on
Bring
it.
that dream to fruition.
Yeah,
Create
I think
templates that we can all just create.
no, I think
Yeah.
that'd be great because like you said, just information about what movement does for you at a playground, I think would be really cool. So you're not, so yes, you're playing and you're you're having fun and you're enjoying the time with your friends, but did you know that this is also happening? These neurochemicals are being released that also promote this and
Yes.
promote that. You know, so that would be kind of cool too. I'm
Or
reading.
the monkey bars, you're strengthening your hands for handwriting, you're integrating your palmar reflex, you know, like
Wow.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
exactly.
think
How cool
Well,
would that be?
yes. Now that you're saying this, I'm like, why is this not in every playground?
Yeah, I mean that's something that we could
This is
definitely
blowing my
do.
mind.
Make these
Yeah.
placards and put them up at the playgrounds and inform the parents that what this play is actually doing is, you know, helping to develop their son or daughter. I'm reading that book that Andy Milne has been putting out on Twitter,
The joy of
The Joy of
movement.
Movement, and it's
Yes.
fantastic. Are you guys on that? It's great.
Yeah.
I'm on like chapter 4, and it's fantastic. It's really, really good information. And like if you pull all that information and put them up on playgrounds and at gyms and at exercise facilities, like that's an extra reason to do it. Not only does it make you feel amazing and it's good for your health, but it promotes you know, the social connection. It does all these great things. I think that would be really interesting to see how something like that could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you see, you know, you're wandering around an everyday environment and you see a parent tell a child, stop skipping or
Stop
stop
moving,
jumping from, like, you know, when they, you know, and kids, like they jump from, they try and not hit the cracks on the floor. And I'm like, no, don't tell them that. They're doing a great job of working on their balance and their spatial awareness and this and that. And you know, the parents being well-meaning, but it's like, this is such a great opportunity for them. Okay, yeah, you can't be cartwheeling everywhere you want to cartwheel, but still. But yeah, understanding that is huge.
That's how you create that awareness within a community, because why are
Yeah.
they telling them that? They're telling them so they don't run into somebody or they don't fall off the curb.
Yeah.
You know, if you create that norm within the society, then it's like, oh, great. Look at, you know, that kid just skipped 2 cracks on the sidewalk. Like, whoa, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's interesting because that spatial awareness is important, right? To don't run straight while you got your head turned the other way, right? You're going to run into somebody, but making it appropriate in certain areas, I think that's really important. So it's not always, you know, don't run, you know, this is a no running zone. where are those zones, right? So where are those zones where you can run and skip and jump and take these little risks and jump off the playground and run up the slide? You know, where are those places? And that's where you need to encourage kids to be kids. Go climb the tree, see how high you can get, see how far you can jump, see how, you know, how much weight you can lift, whatever that might be. Maybe not appropriate at the grocery store, but, you know, let's find those places where it is.
If there's an empty aisle, all bets are off.
I could see at the grocery store
Good.
having those no walk hallways at the grocery stores with the steps and the hoops and you got to jump from here to there.
Yes. We could put them
Parkour at the
strategically
grocery
around.
store.
Oh, parkour at the grocery store would be great.
Yes. Zach, I wanted to ask you, how often do you meet with all parents? Like, because that's something like, admittedly, I'm not very good at parent-teacher conferences. Like, we set up shop in the gym. If they come down and talk to us, great. There's a few students, maybe we'll try to be in their parent-teacher conferences with the classroom teachers. But, you know, we'll give like a general message and then we'll just sit in the gym. 2 hours goes by, we see 3 people and then we leave.
Yeah,
Which
no,
that's something I have to improve on.
I don't have any chance to see all of my parents at that time, but I saw about like 14 sets of parents during this time, which was okay. Sometimes I actually set up a conference with a student or some parents of whose student I think could use some intervention at home. And then the main tool for communication used to be blogs, but now we have Seesaw. So, you know, they're getting messages and videos on their phone from me maybe once a week or at least once every 2 weeks for sure. So that's the main way. And they're always we have a very small community here. So, you know, if I'm in the grocery store out in the community, I'm always hearing about, you know, the Seesaw videos. I see a lot of parents out and about. I mean, you really can't avoid it here. It might be different elsewhere, but we're basically jam-packed in with everybody that we teach. So it's hard to avoid it, really.
It's kind of cool, though. Every
has its
time I
good
go to
and
the
bad
grocery
points.
store, you hear a
Yeah.
couple kids go, Mr. Jorge!
Mr.
You know, run up
Yeah.
and give you a big hug, and it's like, hey. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I've enjoyed that.
I like it too, for sure. But and it gives you a chance to have a little informal conference with parents sometimes, you know. But yeah, so that's something that I want to just keep pushing on, really. Like, I don't know. I don't think, Jorge, do we think of ourselves as do we consider ourselves advocates in our school, or effective advocates?
I think
right
we
now,
could do
as
I
it
mean,
is?
I know for me, I think I could do a better job for sure.
Yeah.
When you were talking about being an advocate, I was thinking about what we were talking about earlier, where, you know, teachers and some parents still have this misconception about, you know, gym class, right?
Yeah.
And how do we get past that? And I think a part of that is being an advocate for your program and putting the information out and letting them see, inviting them into your gym, you know, using Seesaw, letting teachers and parents and administrators see that physical education has evolved and this is what physical education is now. It's not just running laps and playing dodgeball. You know, we do a whole lot of good stuff and we need to promote that. So I don't do a good enough job doing that. I could definitely do better. And, you know, maybe next year working closely together, we can figure out a way to become better advocates.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. All right. So I know we're getting close to the end of the hour, and I know, Joe, you got to be somewhere, right? You got an appointment that you're...
I've got like I've got about 2 minutes. Yeah.
Last word.
So let's wrap this up. This was an awesome conversation. I think we could talk for another like hour or two, but I appreciate you guys taking the time out and doing this. So let's wrap it up by letting everybody know where they could get a hold of you if they want to continue the conversation, they want to ask you a question. What's the best way to get a hold of you? Joe, since you got to go, you want to go first?
Perfect. At Love PhysEd on Twitter. Or you can always shoot me an email, baileyjoanna9@gmail.com.
Awesome. Zach?
I'm Mr. Zach P on Twitter, MRZACKP.
And Brandon.
At Brooklyn Dreamer on Twitter, and I'm always looking for more dance collaborations. So check out Brandon Herwick on YouTube, and if you have a dance you want to do, I would love to do it with you.
Awesome. And I
All right.
am at PhysEd now on Twitter, so check me out and check out everybody. And again, I'll put in the show notes, I will put the link to the Shape America Appropriate and Inappropriate Practices. You can check that out for yourself. A lot of really cool rules of thumb in that document, but again, it is a tool and they are guidelines. It's not like an end all be all. But again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for having this conversation. I really enjoyed this conversation. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. So
Thanks,
thank you,
Jorge.
You too.
and we'll
Thank
talk
you,
again
Jorge.
soon. All right, thank you.
All right,
Bye.
take care. Bye.
Bye.